Welcome back to the Moisture Farm, everybody. We finally have the complete list of all of our new leaders that we're going to get in Jump to Lightspeed. Today, I'm going to make a prediction of where I think these are going to fit in the meta, how these are going to stack up against each other, and to the rest of the game. Before we get started, you might be able to hear it in my voice. I am getting over a cold. I apologize. I'll edit out any gross sick guy noises that I make. So the way I'm approaching this today is obviously, with the announcement of rotation, this set is going to be the first of the future set rotation to come. This is, in a lot of ways, I think, trying to establish like a new meta, a new way that the game is going to be played. This is a pretty groundbreaking set, or I guess space breaking to be a little bit more literate. So my approach to this is I'm going to compare it to its meta that it will be releasing in. So I will be kind of placing this and seeing where this will fit in with where the state of the game is right now, and maybe a little bit factor in how I think this will do, on its own when it rotates out. But who knows with rotation what else is to come with sets 5 and 6. We only know what we know right now. So without further ado, we'll get into it. So up first, we have Asajj Ventress. Leader ability, action, deal 1 damage to a friendly unit. If you do, deal 1 damage to an enemy unit in the same arena. Deploys on 6. When she flips, on the ground, she flips as a 4/6 grit. As a pilot, attached unit is a leader unit. It gains grit, and on attack, you may deal 1 damage to a friendly unit. If you do, deal 1 damage to an enemy unit in the same arena. This is a rare leader. It's actually one of the first ones that was announced to us. Kind of one of our first looks at pilots. I don't see anything about her that's particular. I mean, 4/6 with grit is a pretty big body to give grit. Potential for like the next 2 phases to have a pretty big swing going. Especially if you have this piloting something that already has stats, even if it's going on a token, it's a 4/5 with grit. If it's a tie token. So, I don't really see this as like a really strong meta player. Grit, as it's been shown to us in the first 3 sets, has not been as strong of a mechanic as I think people expected it to be. And with this, I kind of expect it to fall along like kind of where other grit stuff has been, like, Kira's been impressive at times. Obviously, like Chewbacca was kind of a flop as a grit leader. I see this kind of being like a C tier, maybe low B tier at its best. There's just nothing about Asajj that like really screams meta significance to me. All right, next up we have Thrawn. I think one of the more anticipated leaders for this set. Leader ability is when you use a when defeated ability, you may exhaust this leader. If you do, use that ability again. Deploys on 6 as a 4/7 and has an ability when deployed. When you use a when defeated ability, you may use this ability again. Use it only once each round. This has been highly anticipated. As soon as this leader came out, I think that was the one, more than any of these others that have been teased to us, where people immediately start looking into their collections and in the database and trying to find out what combos are going to be the best with Thrawn. There certainly seems like there's a lot of potential here. And I mean, there's good when defeated abilities in each aspect. Red, you've got, Ruthless Raider, among other things. Green, you've got, a lot of experience tokens getting thrown around on defeat. And then as they've shown us, there's been a lot of blue-black cards that have synergized with this, with the new Krennic, the new Chimera. The when defeated triggers are definitely tantalizing to players looking to build around Thrawn. I do think that this is, especially the fact that on 6, you have a potential to use this twice. You'll use it when he's a leader, and then when he flips, you'll be able to use it again as he's deployed. So there's definitely some big swing plays that can come out of this. I do think that I'm hesitant to put this in S tier just because we don't have these in our hands yet. It's tough to make these predictions. I think for now I'm comfortable putting him at a high A tier, and seeing how this plays out. It's definitely one of the stronger leaders for sure, and I think this is the one, arguably the one I think people are most excited to play when we finally get this new set in our hands. Next up, we have Lando Calrissian. Leader ability, action, 1 resource, exhaust. Play a unit from your hand paying its cost. If you do and you control a ground unit and a space unit, give a shield token to this unit. Deploys on 7. Is a 5/7 if deployed on ground. If deployed as a pilot, attached unit is a leader unit. Attached unit gains Sentinel. When deployed as an upgrade, you may give a shield token to a unit in a different arena. A really interesting leader ability configuration in blue-white. We haven't really seen blue in general kind of built around going wide, other than like some blue coordinate cards that weren't particularly strong. So Lando definitely wants you to be in his leader form, wants units on both arenas. I don't see this being particularly strong. The leader ability, so you have to play under curve, right? The units that you're playing, if you want to use this ability, you're playing behind curve to make room for the resource that you're paying for the ability. And you have to have units in both arenas. So there's a relatively difficult condition you have to meet on top of paying a cost. I do think as a leader, he is a 7 deploy, which historically, like 7 deploys have not been particularly strong competitively. Besides like Vader and like 8 deploy, Palpatine gets played a lot, but the idea is you're playing a lot of ramp, which may be a fitting strategy for Lando. I do think in limited, like in draft as a 5/7 Sentinel, or a 5/5 upgrade Sentinel going on a space unit, like that new Ghost. If you have Lando piloting the new Ghost, it's like a shielded. I'm forgetting the Ghost stats off the top of my head, but it's like a big body with a shield that, when attacked, the defender gets -1, which is that's a huge unit and really tough to deal with, I think, in like a limited format. And I do think, in limited, stats matter. Overall, I don't see Lando being particular, and he's a rare leader, so it's going to be hard to even get him in limited. For that reason, I unfortunately think that Lando's going to be my first D tier unit. I'm not sure how it's going to sit with some of you, but I just don't think that it's got the chops to be any better than that, especially considering he's a rare and it won't be commonly used in limited. Okay, next up we have Rose Tico. Action, exhaust, heal 2 damage from a vehicle unit that was attacked this phase. Deploys on 5 as a 4/6. On attack, you may heal 2 damage from a vehicle unit. So kind of getting similar vibes from Obi-Wan last set. It's another damage point, heal 2 damage instead of heal 1, under the condition that it is a vehicle unit and it had to be attacked this phase. I think those 2 conditions really bogged down. Obi-Wan as a leader in Twilight was kind of middle of the pack for its set. And I know some of you have seen, I took Obi-Wan to a showdown and did not do very well. And so this just seems like a worse version of that, considering that there's 2 conditions that really have to be met to do this. 4/6 on 5 is not bad. Healing 2 damage from a vehicle unit. I think her deploy side is much more favorable. Either way, I don't think that this is going to be particularly strong. She's a common leader, so this is your most likely leader that you're going to be using in blue-white. And I just don't really see this having a real major impact on the meta. I apologize, Julio. My man Julio is a big Rose stan. I'm sorry, buddy. This does not seem very good to me. I think I'm going to put it alongside with Lando in D tier. So no love for Vigilance Hero for me this set, unfortunately. I just don't think those are going to be strong relative to the current meta and even relative to its own set, unfortunately. Next up, we've got Admiral Piett, which I heard somewhere that game developers for FFG have noted Piett as one of the more fun leaders to build around this set. Leader ability, action exhaust, play a capital ship unit from your hand. It costs 1 less. Deploys on 5 as a 2/7 with an ability that each capital ship you play costs 2 less. I think this is one of the scarier leaders in the set. It's in command already, so you're already getting access to ramp. I think there's a very important common card. I believe it's a common for this set that we're getting. That is the resupply carrier, I think is what it's called, for 6. That when played lets you put the top card into play as a resource. So it's a unit that has a when played ramp ability. So I think that card is going to be really important. Capital ships have been getting a ton of support this set throughout all the colors. In this current meta, Piett will have access to Avenger in blue, in the command blue shell. There's really like red and blue, I think, are the most common, and there's some capital ships in yellow. I don't think they're as strong as what we've seen in red or blue. Ramp, having inherent access to ramp and being able to play big, powerful units at a discount, I think is very, very threatening. And deploying on 5, so on that turn 4, you're going to be able to play something for 1 less, and then potentially play something for 2 less. I don't know if there's enough capital ships to make that work. We'll have to see what else comes out, because I think only 30% of the set has been released as of recording. Either way, Piett seems like one of the scarier units to be matched up against. I think that's a pretty automatic A tier for me. Yeah, it's just scary. The possibilities are scary. Next up, I think the leader that I'm most excited of for bias, some of y'all know I'm a big Darth Vader guy. We have a new Darth Vader leader. Action ability, exhaust. If you've attacked with a non-token vehicle unit this phase, create a TIE Fighter token. Deploys on 6, either as a pilot or unit on the ground. He's just a 5/6 with no abilities. As a pilot, attached unit is a leader unit. When deployed as an upgrade, create 2 TIE Fighter tokens. So I have dabbled in Vader. I just could not contain my excitement. I had to, do some force table playtesting. And I am very, very excited for this. Particularly in yellow, in this current meta, playing yellow and having access to triple dark raid is a lot of fun for Vader. Building tokens, inherent like token generation within a leader in a set where upgrades to space units and vehicles in general are obviously very prevalent. I really like what Darth Vader brings to the table. I think this is like fair and solid token creation. Attacking with a vehicle, you'll automatically get access to a TIE. You've got lots of TIE pilots in green and blue, and among all the other smaller uncommon common pilots, there's lots of options to sneak those in on those TIEs that you've created and have a big space presence. And on deploy, if you're piloting Vader on deploy, you can really swarm the board with those TIE units. And we also got a legendary event announced today that gives you 8 TIEs that are ready. They can't attack base for the phase, but TIE token generation I think is going to be a lot more of a threat than droid creation, because of these pilot upgrades are going to make them a lot stronger. So I'm very excited for Vader. As far as power level, I'm hesitant to put him up, and if I did put him in A, I think he'd be a low A. I think I can very comfortably put him at a high B for now. He is, I believe, double checking. Yes, he is a common, so he will be, pretty accessible in a limited format. With my own bias, just so excited to play Vader, and I think he's going to be decent. Next up, we have Admiral Holdo. Shout out to the Resistance, the sequels. Leader ability, action, pay 1 exhaust, give a resistance unit or a unit with a resistance upgrade on it, +2/+2 for phase. As a unit, deploys on 6 in the ground arena, 3/8. On attack, you may give another resistance unit or a unit with a resistance upgrade on it, +2/+2 for phase. So Shades of Wat Tambor only obviously has a hero side. The one thing that I do like, if I'm comparing Holdo to Tambor, the condition that you're paying under curve to buff something rather than sacrificing something, I like. Just in those two conditions comparing with each other, Holdo gets held back a little bit more with the fact that it has to be a resistance unit, which I think is getting decent support so far in the set. Like I said, I think we still have a lot of commons and uncommons to be shown to us. And, before obviously making this prediction before I see any of those, but if we have a lot of low cost resistance units that we can pair with Holdo, I think that this is going to be fairly decent. I mean, it's tough to say because especially like these official leaders, like the Leias and Padme, and now we have Holdo. It's like you're hesitant to give green, white a lot of support and props just because they haven't proven to be particularly strong. I think this is going to be definitely stronger than Leia and Padme. And hopefully if we have the right common and uncommon support, it is a rare leader, so you won't have high degrees of access to it in limited, but I think it's going to be okay. It's definitely not as bad as the Vigilance Hero leaders. I want to put it probably at like a high C. I think probably slightly better than Ventress, just because I think like green white as a tempo deck paired with either red or even double green, I think there's potential there that Holdo might untap, but it's too close to say right now, and I feel comfortable putting her at like a high C. Next up, we've got Wedge Antilles, action exhaust, play a card from your hand using piloting. It costs 1 less. Deploys on 5. On the ground as a 3/6 with no abilities. As a pilot, attached unit is a leader unit. It gains on attack the next pilot card you play. This phase costs 1 less. I'm struggling with Wedge for a couple reasons. It does seem like it's a more viable strategy to get pilots on vehicles, being more efficient with your costs on how you do those. It does specifically say play a card using piloting, so you can't play like a pilot unit as a ground unit for cheaper. Specifically, it's the piloting cost, which have all seemed relatively cheap so far. This is obviously, we have the new Chewbacca pilot in green white already, which is great. And that's a really maybe the strongest pilot, non-leader pilot we've seen so far. So being able to cheat that out early is a big thumbs up for me. And in this current meta, we'll have access to the Wedge Antilles unit, which gives all your vehicles ambush. So working that in from Spark of Rebellion, I think this deck has potential to be a lot of fun. Do I think it's going to be meta shaking? I don't know. I don't think so. I think it kind of falls under the same boat as Holdo, where I need to see more of the bulk cards. I think green in general, as an aspect, the bulk cards have been pretty important to how the deck functions, because you want to go wide, while also ramping and things like that. I feel like it's kind of on the same plane as Holdo and Ventress for now. Maybe I think it's naturally a little bit better than Holdo. I'll put it at the top of C tier for now. Maybe I could see it sneaking up into B, but I really just need to see those support cards. Okay, next up we have Boba Fett. We couldn't stay away from him. Boba Fett has returned once again, this time in the aggression villain aspect. Leader ability, when you deal non-combat damage, you may exhaust this leader. If you do, deal 1 indirect damage to a player. That player assigns 1 unpreventable damage among their base and units. Deploys on 6 as a ground unit, 4/7 with no abilities. As a pilot, attached unit is a leader unit. When deployed as an upgrade, deal up to 4 damage divided as you choose among any number of units. This was with the new Han, one of the first leaders that were teased to us with Jump to Lightspeed in the Spotlight decks. Spotlight, that's what they're calling it, right? Yeah. And ever since we've seen this, we've all been curious about indirect damage and how that's going to look and how it's going to interact with the rules. We've gotten some insight on that so far. We know that indirect damage is obviously assigned by the player it's being dealt to. It also goes underneath shields, so it does damage shielded units, underneath the shield without breaking the shield, if the damage is assigned there. I've done some playtesting with the Spotlight deck on Force Table since it's been loaded in. I think indirect damage is going to be a pretty gnarly mechanic to build around. Particularly Boba, it gets to throw 1 more around. I see this, I'm going to project a little bit to our first rotation eventually when it comes out. I could see this sort of taking over the Bosk Blue control shell, where you're using indirect damage cards, you're using straight up damage cards like Force Choke and Open Fire, combined with bounties and blue removal as well. I think this has a potential to be like the next control superstar, especially with the event, the new event that he got that deals damage to something equal to one more than its remaining HP. Playing that card and then triggering this leader so that your opponent has to deal one more indirect. So you're either getting a ping for one or you're removing the unit you targeted with the event. I think this is going to be a pretty strong card, pretty strong leader to build around. Especially we have the new legendary event that deals a ton of indirect damage. If you control a capital ship, it's like 12 indirect damage, which is, if you're playing control, that's just, ideally you're playing that into an empty board. That's just 12 damage straight to face. So definitely some brutal potential for this. I want to put it at like, I think it has to go in A. Just what I've seen, how much support indirect damage is getting, how easy it's going to be to trigger this as a leader ability. I see this being A, potentially going down to like high B, but I feel pretty strongly about this as a prediction of being capable, at least. All right, next up we have Captain Phasma, which right off the bat I will say that is my bold prediction of having the best showcase in this set. Foil, like, showcase Phasma feels like a match made in heaven. That is going to be so beautiful when we see it next week. I can't wait. Leader ability, Action Exhaust. If you played a first order card this phase, deal 1 damage to a base. Flips as a 4/6 on 5. I like those stats. On attack, if you played another first order card this phase, you may deal 1 damage to a unit. If you do, deal 1 damage to a base. So, lots of pinging, lots of damage both to units and bases going around. When this leader was released to us, we got a lot of first order cards flooding in, both in the aggression and command as well. I think this is going to be... I'm definitely excited to play Phasma. She's a rare leader, so not going to be particularly accessible in Limited. Reminds me a lot of Bo-Katan. I think that's kind of where everyone's mind went when we saw this, which was kind of a mid-tier leader in its set. Bo-Katan was, and I think I do have a little bit more aspirations for Phasma than I did for Bo-Katan, and I think that's mostly because of the villain aspect and the pinging. I think go together a lot better. Constant pinging from Phasma going into like a flip. She flips on the same turn. You could play Overwhelming Barrage, which obviously, is just such a brutal event we're all familiar with, at least for this current meta that it's releasing in, right? I feel pretty good about Phasma, but history has shown me that trait specialized leaders don't necessarily soar besides Cad Bane. Cad Bane's like the one exception. The support for Underworld just goes crazy. But yeah, Bo-Katan and like Hera, Grand Moff Tarkin for Imperials has some decent moments here and there. But I think with my hesitancy with trait synergy leaders, kind of holds back my prediction for Phasma. I'm going to go ahead and put her kind of like in low B for now. Just because of that. I'm very excited to play Phasma. And I have played like in a sealed format, where I've opened Bo-Katan and like played all the Mandalorian units, and like you do very well if you've got the support for it. So I could see like if you draft, if you're lucky enough to draft Phasma, I could see you having a pretty decent night in this set. So we'll see. I think low B is like a pretty safe bet for her right now. Next up, we have the newest member of the party, the last leader announced, aggression villain, Major Vonreg. I actually cannot. I will shamefully admit that I don't know if that's a hard G or a soft G. Vonreg. I'm gonna go with hard. I don't know. Action. Exhaust, play a vehicle unit from your hand, paying its cost. If you do, give another unit +1/+0 for phase. Deploys on 4 as a 2/5. Sounds familiar. 2/5 with no abilities on the ground. As a pilot, attached unit is a leader unit. It gains on attack. You may give another unit in this arena +1/+0 for the phase. So I think they played this leader a little safe with his ability. Trying to create like a tempo aggro leader in villain red, but the ability I think it's interesting. It's similar to Kylo where you're taking an action to buff a unit and then have to wait for action to get back to actually attack. I like the idea of like forcing you to play wide to buff something up. I like the idea of giving either a token or a smaller space unit a +1 buff to trade into a space sentinel that might be getting in your way. So I think, there's a little flexibility there, but I do think like they kind of just played this a little too safe. The big thing to factor in with Vonreg is that he also got his uncommon ship, which has, I think if it's over 4, it gets Overwhelm. If it's power over 6, it gets Raid 1. You're definitely ideally trying to have him pilot his interceptor. So, like I said, I think they played this a little safe. I think he's going to be okay. I'm thinking probably high C, low B for Vonreg. A 2/5 on the ground with no ability. Obviously, it's just it's a worse Sabine. But you're definitely you're wanting to play vehicle units. You want to have a wide space board. So I don't know. I maybe even like below Wedge in C. I think they just played this a little bit too safe. But I could be completely wrong on that, to be honest with you. We'll just have to kind of wait and see how that pans out. All right, here we go. Next up, Luke Skywalker has returned, this time an aggression hero. Action, exhaust. If you attacked with a fighter unit this phase, deal 1 damage to a unit. Deploys on 6 as a 5/6 with no ability on the ground. As a pilot, this upgrade can't be defeated by enemy card abilities. Attached unit is a leader unit. If it's a fighter, it gains on attack. You may deal 3 damage to a unit. I think this has a lot of interest going into this set. I think people are really excited to get their hands on Luke. Someone in my Discord, I wish I could remember who it was, pointed out the flavor of, Vader creating a token and Luke pinging it away as a leader, which kind of flips how the original starter decks were, where Vader was pinging a shield away as Luke was creating them and putting them on units. So a cool kind of role reversal there. I don't. It's the tough thing for me with Luke is that fighter units are definitely more of it's a tempo play. If you're building around fighters, those are smaller units that hit a little harder, and it's that the top end is where I would be a little bit concerned about, and considering that this is a 6 deploy leader, you don't get to play as fast as I think the ability kind of wants you to, if that makes sense. Like if this was a 5 deploy leader, I'd definitely be thinking more like, okay, pushing tempo, but changing that to 6, you kind of have to build this a little bit more mid-rangey. In the current meta, as we've all seen, red, green, white using energy conversion lab base has been a very, very strong aspect and base combination. And I think, until that rotates out, you can't go wrong. Like you just can't go wrong building that aspect as a deck. So Luke will benefit from that, being able to ECO Poe and Wrecker, at least for another year, is going to be still like an insanely strong play, and he gets the benefit from that, which are the mid-range plays that you would need to make to have this be like a really well-rounded deck. So I think in the meta that it's released in, I'm going to put it in B tier, like definitely low B tier though. Once this rotates out, I mean, like I said, it all kind of depends on those other 2 sets, right? But I could see this getting worse, like when Energy Conversion Lab eventually kicks the bucket in the proverbial rotation premiere format. So, but we'll see. All right, here we go. The moment we've all been waiting for. Where is the Moisture Farmer going to place the new Poe Dameron leader? Action. Pay 1 exhaust, flip this leader and attach him as an upgrade to a friendly vehicle unit without a pilot on it. Deploys on 5 as a 4/6 with no abilities on the ground. As a pilot, action pay 1, attach this upgrade to a friendly vehicle unit without a pilot on it. Use this ability only once each round. One of the most unique leaders. I think it's safe to say it's the most unique leader in the game, especially when you combine it with the new event that they released on the same day that they released Poe, Eject, where you obviously remove a pilot upgrade, put it into the ground as an exhausted unit. We've had some exploity things in this game, some exploity interactions, ramping and getting leaders out, above curve. This is a different level. This is insane. I mean, a 2/1 upgrade, like, and we have the new black 1, right? So turn 1 you play black 1, turn 2 it gets essentially a 3/1 upgrade because of black 1's ability if you flip Poe onto it, which turns it into like a 5/4. I think 5/4 or 5/3. Either way. And then swing, and in that same turn you can eject, right? Because this ability will cost you 1 resource. Eject, I believe, is a 2 resource card, 2 resource event. So, turn 2, potentially ejecting Poe and having an exhausted 4/6 on the ground is gnarly. And that also, keep in mind, that is not using his epic action. That is using his ability, cheating him out. So he still has epic action at that point, which means later in the game you can deploy him as either a ready ground unit or deploy him as a pilot again. So there's going to be so much comboing. I think this may get out of hand very quickly, and I feel very safe putting Poe as my first and maybe even my only leader that tops the S tier category in set 4. And it's releasing in this current meta with Energy Conversion Lab, so it's gonna reap all the benefits of that. It definitely was not what I was expecting with Poe Dameron. I expected him to be a leader in this set, but I expected more of like a discard synergy with the existing Poe and the black 1. But this is just gnarly, and there's definitely not a more anticipated leader as far as competitive Star Wars Unlimited goes than Poe Dameron. All right, next up we've got Admiral Trench. Action exhaust. Discard a card that costs 3 or more from your hand. If you do, draw a card. Action 3 exhaust. If you control 6 or more resources, deploy this leader. And when deployed is a 4/5. When deployed, reveal the top 4 cards of your deck. An opponent discards 2 of them. Draw 1 of the remaining cards and discard the other. So we've got some deck shenanigans going on with Admiral Trench. He's a rare leader. Really interesting concept. I really like where FFG's head is with this card. There's no epic action for Trench. His deploy is a non-epic action, meaning that you can do this multiple times. You can, throw him out there, defeat him, exploit him, whatever, bring him back the next phase, mess with your deck again. I think this is going to be a very fun leader. Do I think it's going to be competitive? No, I think it's better than Afra, which is comparable as a cunning villain leader that has deck meddling shenanigans, right? And you want to throw Thrawn in that bucket too, I suppose. I think this is definitely more fun than either of those. Competitive strength, it's tough to say because deck meddling can be extremely powerful. And the rare bases in this set let you kind of fluctuate base health for deck priorities. So I think there's going to be some combinations that are going to be really fun to build this with this leader. I'm going to say safely for now that he's going to reside somewhere in the C tier. Maybe low C tier, unfortunately, is just as far as competitive goes. I think we'll just kind of have to wait and see, especially, he's a rare leader. So, limited, we're not particularly, worried about seeing him, but, in a set that where everything is really dominated by space and there's, no vehicle synergy or anything really going on with him, kind of falls behind in that regard. But I'm definitely going to be messing around with Trench. In yellow, being able to craft your hand like that and get powerful units like Forlom and Zuckuss and Bosk and Cad Bane could prove to be, really effective. If I'm gonna miss on a prediction, I think it's this one. Someone a lot smarter than me might turn this leader and deck combination into an absolute schnasty piece of work. We'll see. All right, next up we have Rio Durant filling out the other villain yellow leader. Action 1 exhaust, attack with a space unit. It gets +1/+0 and gains Saboteur for this attack. Deploys on 5 as a ground unit, 3/5 with Saboteur. As a pilot, attached unit is a leader unit. It gains Saboteur. If it's a transport, it also gets +1/+0. I like Rio, especially as the common leader for this color set. I like Saboteur. Having a leader being able to throw around Saboteur, could, in theory, completely shut down someone's strategy of trying to put out sentinels and keeping you away from your base. You can play this as a tempo deck. It also is inherently kind of mid-rangey where with that Saboteur you can go through shields and defeat pesky shielded units, trade up into pesky shielded units. So I think there's some cool potential for Rio. Saboteur I think that's just good. Honestly, his stats aren't particularly impressive. A 3/5 for 5 is not great. Arguably bad even. but I like it. Something about, maybe I whiff on this too, but something about the Saboteur and +1 being able to trade up into stuff, go through shields, get around Sentinels, I think is going to do decently. That being said, I mean, not, decently enough that I think it's better than anything in B tier, or like significantly better than anything in C tier. I think it kind of sits around like one of these top few spots in C tier as, and that, like I said, like support, we kind of just need to see what's more support these guys get, with the rest of the set to be announced. All right, coming up next, we have Action 1 Exhaust. I'm going into the ability without even reading the leader. We got Admiral Ackbar. It's a trap. He is in. Look at that beautiful art, too. That's a good-looking card right there. Action 1 Exhaust. Exhaust a non-leader unit. If you do, its controller creates an X-Wing token. Deploys on 6 as a 3/8. On attack, you may exhaust the unit. If you do, its controller creates an X-Wing token. I am not very partial to this token method of token generation. I don't like something that gives your opponent a 2/2. I don't like that you have to slow yourself down to get a 2/2. I can see, we are in a piloting set, and maybe those pilots, like being able to exhaust something to pilot a X-Wing token, there may be value in that. I really don't see it, though, especially because you have to pay 1, so like you're playing below curve to slow yourself down in order to get tokens. I just don't see it right now. And he deploys too late, I think. So I'm really thinking for Ackbar, I'm thinking high DT. I think he's worse. He's worse than Lando. I don't think he's worse than, I don't know. He might even be worse than Rose, honestly. There's just nothing I'm excited about with Ackbar. All right, next up, our other spotlight leader, we have, who else but Han Solo? Let's see. Let's count real quick. We now have 3 Han Solo leaders. We have a 7-cost ambush. We have a new legendary Han. And we have, on top of all of those, another, 3 or 4 event cards that have his face on them, like Bamboozle, Shoot First, Don't Get Too Cocky, or... Yeah, this guy is absolutely plastered all over this game. And you know what? I like it. I'm here for it. As a leader, Action Exhaust, reveal the top card of your deck, then attack with a unit. If the revealed card and the unit have different odd costs, that unit gets +1/+0 for this attack. Deploys on 5. As a ground unit, 3/7, no abilities. As a pilot, attached unit is a leader unit. When deployed as an upgrade, for each friendly unit or upgrade that has an odd cost, ready a resource. So this whole odd cost thing, I'm not super sure about. What I do, you're playing a lot of 1 cost, like you're playing ideally 2 1-drops turn 1. And, if you're not playing like super aggro, then, or playing like some form of card draw, then you could easily fizzle out playing a strategy like that. The leader ability, like the condition of, okay, let's go through all the conditions here. Top card of your deck, attack with a unit. Revealed card and the unit have different odd costs. Then the attacking unit gets a single extra point of damage for the attack. I don't feel very confident in that strategy. It also seems weird to just build a deck strictly around the fact that you are only playing odd cost cards. I dabbled a little bit in the Spotlight deck, and I wasn't overly impressed. I mean, it does have the ability to go really wide because you're playing like a lot of 1s and 3s. As a pilot leader, you're kind of relying on going wide, like flipping them at the end of your turn and hoping you have, 4 or 5 different odd costs out there. Or anything that has an odd cost doesn't have to be different odd costs. But upgrades, if you have 4 cards in play, right, either units or upgrades when Han flips, you're readying up all of your resources. So, potentially some big swing plays there, but the leader ability definitely seems a little lacking. And so I think it is going to end up like in maybe the middle of C tier for me. I don't know. Like I could be totally wrong about that, but I think like you get one swing play if all your ducks in a row when he flips. And like if not, like there's just not a lot of big payoffs coming out here. So I think it just kind of it feels middle of the pack to me. That's just how it feels. Is it so like where it's seated right now? Is it better than Holdo? I think so. Is it worse than Vonreg? Yeah, maybe about the same. So I think that's a good spot to put it. Alrighty, and last and maybe least, but yeah, last leader, I will also be, I will shamelessly admit I don't know exactly how to pronounce his name. I have not watched the Resistance show. Kazuda Xiono? I'm going to go with Xiono. I don't know. Action exhaust. A friendly unit loses all abilities for this round. Take an extra action after this one. Deploys on 4. As a ground unit, 2/5 on attack. Choose any number of friendly units. They lose all abilities for this round. As a pilot, attached unit is a leader unit. It gains on attack. Choose any number of friendly units. They lose all abilities for this round. Definitely felt weird on announcement, right? Why would you want to take abilities away from your own units? And then you start like digging in, and they released some kind of overstated cards that have, self-inflicting abilities that, you can like disable or mitigate with Kazuda. So there's some of that going on. And then at least in the meta that it is released in, right, the biggest control player is Bosk Blue, which is controlling, using bounties as a method of control. So using, having a leader that can just shut off bounties for a phase is pretty strong. Especially the leader side where you can disable that ability and then take another action. So like, for example, turn 1, you play something, Bosk puts a bounty on it. You disable that ability and then take an extra action, which can just be initiative. So you shut down the bounty, prevent him from pinging, and then you just have initiative. So like that one specific matchup, it can be favorable, as long as you're like capitalizing on that and going wide, and that can definitely get out of hand pretty quickly for a Bosk player. But outside of that one like particularly favorable matchup, you're just kind of playing like specific cards that aren't like overwhelmingly powerful. They just are a little bit overstated, and you get to like benefit from that self-inflicting ability to have an overstated unit, which is just not that, it's just not that strong. Like, there are better leaders that you can play overstated or play above curve, like obviously Han Yellow, Han 1. We have access, you're getting an extra resource and just playing ahead of curve. Whether you're playing that in, it doesn't matter what shell you're playing that in, which is just better than playing a specific unit card that's just, not as strong as a card that you could play above curve with a different leader in the same aspect. So in the meta that's coming out in, I think it's pretty weak. It's got one favorable matchup, another 4 deployed leader, 2/5. I don't know if I put this at, I don't think it's bad enough for D, just because of this one matchup where it'll be favorable. And even then, it doesn't permanently shut down a bounty. The boss player can still play into the bounties. It just slows it down quite a bit, which, I guess boss green, you want to play tempo with your bounties, but boss blue, they're playing the long game anyways. So I feel pretty comfortable putting this down pretty low. It might even be the top of my D tier, to be honest with you. All right, that rounds out my list. Let me know what you guys think I am whiffing on, what I'm not seeing in this set. Time will tell. I'm sure. I'll save this and laugh at myself in the future. I'm sure when this all gets hashed out in the meta after release. This weekend, I will be attending the Planetary Qualifier in San Francisco. I'll be doing a vlog for the channel for that. So look forward to that. Coming up in just a couple days here. So I'm excited for it. And that is when I will see you all next.